icon of independence for many nations. And migrant deaths in the Mediterranean mark failings in European Union's policy. Hello and thank you all for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. We have a breaking news. The Joint Security Task Force said in a statement that some extremist members of the diaspora have been working to disrupt the sixth national elections by providing financial and logistical support to the extremists. According to the statement, action is being taken against disorganized groups, leaders, illegal weapons prepared for the mission, various materials, financial support and transfer of money, and various information and evidence related to their mission. The Joint Task Force said in a statement that the groups, both inside and outside the country, have been secretly liaising with members of the political and security structures and government to carry out their plans to disrupt the national elections by plotting to assassinate key leaders. The House of People's Representatives, in its 13th regular session to be held tomorrow, is expected to scrutinize and approve resolution passed by Council of Ministers last week to designate Shani and TPLF as terrorist organizations. Parliament is also set to discuss various issues and approve the minutes of its previous session, according to Public Relations and Communication Office of the House. President Sahle-Work Zewde is in Niger for GERD talks and current issues talk with Niger's president. On her arrival in Niamey, she was welcomed by Nigerian Prime Minister Mamadou Mamadou. The purpose of the president's visit to Niger is to hold talks with the president of Niger, Mohamed Bazoum, on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the current situation in the Tigray region. In addition to the president, the Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy, Seleshi Bekele, is expected to provide information on Ethiopia's position on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the current status of the dam. It is known that the Security Council has been raising concerns about the GERD on the ongoing law enforcement operation in the Tigray region. Ethiopians who have never lost a battle in history will always win any war waged against them as long as they stand united and remain vigilant. This was disclosed on the 80th anniversary of Patriots' Victory Day, which was vibrantly marked here in the capital today at Arat Kilo. Shifara Olago presents the story as follows.
After the Battle of Adwa, that had dealt a crushing blow to the Italians, Fascist Italy began to invade Ethiopia, which again resulted in its defeat, thanks to the gallantry of Ethiopian patriots maintaining territorial integrity and national independence. The 80th anniversary of Patriots' Victory Day was vibrantly marked in Addis Ababa, commemorating these victories. Addis Ababa Deputy Mayor Adanech Abebi has laid a wreath of flowers to commemorate the fallen patriots for the only independent nation in Africa. The president of the ancient Ethiopian Patriots Association, Daniel Joti Mesfin, on the occasion called on the young generation of Ethiopia to keep the sovereignty of Ethiopia as handed down by the patriots.
It is your forefathers and foremothers' sacrifice, bravery, and determination that have helped set free the continent of Africa from the yoke of slavery and colonial rule. My brothers, sisters, and my children, if you like my boss and government officials, please pay close attention to what I say. Let's be one and create a better and loftier country.
The courageous patriots have also advised fellow citizens to keep their unity and solidarity against potential intruders.
Our enemies never sleep. Bearing this in mind, we have to cooperate, and when we stand united, no one will dare invade us. Ethiopia has never lost any battle in its history, so all we need to do is standing in unison to protect our country against enemies. I remember the indomitable young Ethiopians who never cared about wearing shoes or caps for that matter, bravely chasing the surrounding enemies with their swords. Our enemies are currently scattering seeds of racism among us and trying to wound Ethiopia. Ethiopia will not tolerate such provocation.
The deputy mayor of Addis Ababa has advised the current generation to preserve the courage of the victory of the patriots and stand united to defend national interests.
A historian said Italy's attempt to invade Ethiopia failed after the victory of Adwa due to united efforts. Now Ethiopians must strengthen their unity to end the false propaganda being spread by foreign powers. Although the Italian army committed atrocities at the time, Ethiopians were able to uphold their sovereignty and dignity with concerted efforts.
After the invading Italian army defeat by patriots in the Battle of Adwa, 40 years later the first army came to invade Ethiopia, but the invader rooted out by indomitable forefathers.
Ethiopians from all walks of life were fighting the well-armed Italian troops in sword and backward weapons. Even though the Italian army used chemical bombs, Ethiopian patriots did not see the attack crossing their hands, rather they fought bravely without fear. Ethiopians paid huge sacrifice in Maicho in northern Ethiopia.
Although the Italian army committed atrocities at the time, Ethiopians were able to uphold their sovereignty and dignity with concerted efforts, the historian explained.
Despite the Italian army committed heinous attack at the time, the army were unable to break the people's morale. The Italians who were unable to resist Ethiopians' infantry were supported by poisonous gases. Finally, the Italian army began killing the cattle because they believed that Ethiopians will get starved and stop fighting. But the people moved the cattle to the forest and burrows.
Now Ethiopia is facing false propagandas from foreign and domestic forces, and the scholar said Ethiopians should take lessons from their forefathers and unite to foil the conspiracy.
Currently, various diplomatic pressures are coming from foreign and local forces. Developing natural resources like the GERD is related with sovereign rights. Some superpower countries are trying to twist our hands and manipulate Ethiopia on behalf of mediator. We should not accept this. All Ethiopians should unite and refuse such intimidations through taking lessons from our fathers, and we have to struggle them diplomatically.
The 80th anniversary of the Patriots' Victory Day has been celebrated colorfully on Wednesday.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia says Sudan's claim over the Benishangul Gumuz region is a confrontational propaganda campaign. Ministry spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti has briefed the press on current issues. Demis Mekra reports.
Welcome to our weekly briefing. Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Ambassador Dina Mufti gave press briefing on latest development in Ethiopia. In his press briefing, Ambassador Dina addressed Ethio-Sudan border conflict and the upcoming general elections, along with other political and economic diplomacy issues. Ambassador Dina noted that Sudan recently claimed over Benishangul Gumuz region as its own territory. The claim, according to the ambassador, is not only unwarranted and provocative, but also increasingly bellicose propaganda campaign.
Sudan has been giving provocative statements over the last since it has invaded Ethiopian territory November 6. Ethiopia has been there was tolerance. We can call it over-tolerance on the part of the Ethiopian government because of its commitment for peaceful resolutions of this border dispute. However, the Sudanese have continued violating Ethiopian territories, looting Ethiopian properties, and giving out negative propagandas. Particularly the recent statement on the Benishangul is non-starter, and it is a statement that has been ill-conceived, and based because the Benishangul issue has nothing to do with other border disputes with Sudan. It has nothing to do also with the trilateral negotiations that we carry out on the GERD. So the Ethiopian government vehemently has condemned it.
The spokesperson also said European Union cancels its election observation mission to Ethiopia. This, according to Dina, comes after the Ethiopian government declines to accept EU's illogical election observation precondition. Ambassador Dina also talked about the repatriation of some 683 Ethiopian citizens from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Ethiopia has denounced the unwarranted, provocative, and increasingly confrontational propaganda campaign by Sudan. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to the statement issued on the GERD and the Ethio-Sudan border dispute by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sudan. The statement is presented as follows.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia had to issue this press statement because of the unwarranted, provocative, and increasingly bellicose propaganda campaign by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of the Sudan against Ethiopia. Ethiopia has for long refrained from reacting to the numerous fabricated stories appearing in the press statements of Sudanese institutions and remarks by government officials taking into account the historic and fraternal relations between the brotherly peoples of Ethiopia and the Sudan. However, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, with a view of putting the record straight, would like to make the following points very clear to the brotherly people of the Sudan and the international community at large. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Sudan, in its press statement issued on 1st May 2021, has once again attempted to mislead the people of the Sudan and the international community on issues related to the Ethiopia-Sudan boundary and the trilateral negotiations on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD. Ethiopia, as an old independent and sovereign country, has time-tested reputation in respecting international treaties and obligations it has signed. The unfounded statement of the Sudanese Foreign Ministry only aims at covering up the continuing aggression committed by the Sudan since November 6, 2020, in violation of international principles, bilateral agreements, and established joint boundary mechanisms. The unprecedented hostile military actions by the Sudan, the current chair of our regional organization, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development IGAD, has resulted in the looting and burning of properties, killing of civilians, as well as the displacement of thousands of Ethiopians. Ethiopia strongly believes that all the recent actions and vitriolic propaganda campaigns of the government of the Sudan against Ethiopia do not reflect the wishes and aspirations of the peace-loving people of the Sudan. Ethiopia has been consistently calling the government of the Sudan to reverse its aggression and resolve the boundary issues in accordance with bilateral agreements and joint boundary mechanisms to finalize the redemarcation process. The reference in the Sudanese statement to the Benishangul Gumuz region of Ethiopia is indeed utterly ridiculous. It is common knowledge that Ethiopia's historic territories in the west would have been extended beyond what is now Ethiopia's boundary if it was not for the existing boundary agreement. The attempts by the government of the Sudan to mix the boundary treaties with the unjust, exclusive and colonial-based bilateral agreements on the utilization of the waters of the Nile is regrettable. As far as Ethiopia is concerned, it has repeatedly expressed its position regarding those colonial-biased agreements, whose sole aim was and still is to deny the rights of upper riparian states, including Ethiopia, to use the waters of the Nile. Ethiopia, therefore, categorically rejects any and all attempts to preserve a self-appropriated water quota among the downstream countries. The insistence of downstream countries to monopolize the waters of the Nile and politicization of technical issues are the main challenges that the trilateral negotiations have faced. Ethiopia calls for the peaceful resolution of the boundary issues with the Sudan based on the existing joint boundary mechanisms and finalizing the trilateral negotiations on the GERD in accordance with the Declaration of Principles DOP of 2015. In fact, it is not clear to whose interest that the current authorities in the Sudan have suddenly changed their position, although they have repeatedly pointed out that the GERD has enormous benefits to the Sudan. Ethiopia highly values the historical and brotherly relations that exist between the two countries and thus still committed to address all related issues through dialogue and negotiations. It once again calls upon the government of the Sudan to desist from an unhelpful campaign and commit itself to dialogue and peaceful resolution. In this connection, Ethiopia looks forward to the engagement of the international community in encouraging the Sudan towards a peaceful resolution of the dispute.
Turkey believes the African Union-led negotiation will bring amicable solution to the disputes over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The country also supports AU's peacekeeping effort in the Horn region. Turkish ambassador to Ethiopia, Yaprak Alp, told ETV Languages. Sintayo Tamrat reports.
Speaking to ETV Languages on one of the hardest issues in the East Africa region, which is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam dispute among Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt, Turkish ambassador to Ethiopia Yaprak Alp said that the river should be used for the benefit of all parties, and the African Union-led tripartite negotiation will bring amicable solution to the 10-year-long negotiation over the GERD among the three parties, she said.
We believe that water resources should be to the benefit of everybody. We believe that this should be done through negotiation between the parties, and this should only be to the benefit. And we believe and hope that this will be solved within the African Union according to the rules that the three countries put together.
Turkey, like Ethiopia, is upstream country of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers in the Middle East, as both rivers originate in eastern Anatolia, while Syria and Iraq are located downstream, and the turbulence between Turkey and Syria on water issues continued until the Adana Security Protocol in 1998, which enabled Turkey and Syria to reach an agreement and laid the foundation for large-scale cooperation ranging from trade to treason. Based on this experience, Ambassador Yaprak Alp suggests Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt should resolve the GERD dispute by themselves.
On the GERD issue, we also have a water issue. We also have a dam. We are also an upstream country, just like Ethiopia. And so we have a lot of experience on this issue. We believe that the countries involved should usually solve these water issues. They are the ones who are affected by it, upstream, downstream, etc. And we hope that this issue will be solved very soon for the benefit of all countries.
Asked about Turkey's role in the Horn region, Ambassador Alp said Turkey is in support of AU's peacemaking effort in the Horn region because the socio-economic and political activities in the region might affect boundaries beyond the region.
Turkey believes that the Horn of Africa is hugely important. I think everybody believes that. With the important countries here, Ethiopia being at the center, the fact that everything that happens in Ethiopia and the Horn affects the Middle East and the wider region as a whole, number one, is very important for the stability. That's why Turkey wants stability, because you affect everything around you. And number two, because of our friendly relations. Of course, we only want peace and prosperity for Ethiopia. Number three, the amount of relations that we have with Ethiopia and the other countries in the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Sudan, Djibouti, they're huge. We have embassies everywhere in all of these countries. We are heavily invested in all of these countries, and we feel that their prosperity is our prosperity. That's the way we look at this. That's what we want for this. Now, we will only be involved if the countries involved want us to be involved.
Over the past 15 years, Turkey has gradually increased its political and economic ties with African countries. Its involvement has become more visible in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in East Africa.
Ethiopia is the source of the Blue Nile and contributes over 85% of the Nile's stream flow. To this day, Egypt and Sudan are using 100% of the water, sticking to their 1959 colonial agreement between them. Not being signatories, Ethiopia and other upstream states do not recognize this agreement. Ethiopia is at the eve of completing the Great Renaissance Dam. Costing over $5 billion that is being paid by ordinary Ethiopians. This dam will generate 5.1 gigawatt of power, and it is a non-consumptive, eco-friendly, existential necessity to millions. The three countries have been in dispute over the construction, filling and operation of this dam. Even thought this dam provides major benefits to Sudan and Egypt in terms of reducing evaporation loss, silt, sedimentation and unexpected flood. This dam is not just about generating power. It is a matter of survival for millions of Ethiopians who deserve a dignified life as their Egyptian counterparts.
In a similar story related to the Ethio-Turkey relations, Adam Mohammed, the newly appointed ambassador of Ethiopia to Turkey, presented his letter of credence to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan as the presidential complex in Ankara. During the ceremony, President Erdogan underlined the great importance his country attaches to its relationship with Ethiopia. He emphasized that the two countries should make use of the wide range of economic, cultural, and diplomatic opportunities that exist them to bring their cooperation to the highest level. Ambassador Adam, on his part, lauded the strategic partnership that exists between Ethiopia and Turkey, and also expressed his readiness to further consolidate the excellent bilateral partnership of the countries. Deputy President of Somali region Mustafa Umar, along with other high-level regional officials, have inaugurated an oxygen plant that has a capacity of producing 200 cylinders of oxygen per day. The inauguration of the oxygen plant comes at a time when the pandemic is rapidly increasing and the number of deaths from the virus is rising in the country. Addressing the inauguration ceremony, the Deputy President of the region, Mustafa Umar, said the plant will have a crucial role in addressing pandemic-induced oxygen shortage in the region and the country at large. Medical institutions in the region were getting oxygen from Addis Ababa, 622 kilometers from the regional capital Jigjiga. It was indicated on the inaugural ceremony. There is a plan to reach a wider area beyond the region through increased production, the Deputy President said on the occasion. Regional Deputy Administrator Ibrahim Usman and the Health Bureau head Yusuf Mohammed have attended the inaugural ceremony. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has recognized Ethiopia's achievement in adopting new media law as a tool to ensuring freedom of expression. Whilst addressing World Press Freedom Day, UNESCO representative to Ethiopia, Yomiko Yokozeko, said that the organization acknowledges Ethiopian government's adherence to keeping the rights of freedom of expression. It also initiated wide-range reforms such as legal, media law, and others. 2 years ago, Ethiopia was chosen to host a global conference on the media in Addis Ababa in partnership with African Union and UNESCO. The government of Ethiopia took a number of important measures that aimed at enhancing freedom of expression and media freedom in Ethiopia, including releasing of journalists from prison and unblocking of websites and social media.
Here I am in the Kalahari Desert in South Africa. I'm actually in the Kalahari Frontier Park, which is in a remote part of Northern Cape. It's about as far into South Africa as you get. We're bordered on one side by Botswana and on the other side by Namibia. This is the most beautiful region. It is everything you expect a desert to be, but with African animals. And we've seen a hell of a lot. We've seen lions, we've seen giraffe, we've seen an abundance of springbok and oryx. Today I've been and I have visited a bushman's village. The bushmen were there in their native dress, explaining their way of life with us. And I can tell you it's quite a frugal way of life. Their lifestyle may be simple, but it seems to be that they're very, very happy people.
Then now we are back in our place where we was bushman.
And finally, numbers of Africans die in the most horrible migrant tragedy from Sudan, Libya, trying to reach Europe's shores. The European Union's border agency did not respond to their attempt for safe arrival. More than 20,000 migrants or asylum seekers have perished since 2014 and has renewed accusations that European countries are failing to sufficiently help migrant boats in trouble. Kazaun Chane has more from African News.
Mubarak Jabir, 23, from Sudan, Saita from Libya, trying to reach rough shores. So the conditions after the Sudanese revolution became worse than before, at a high cost of living, no employment, no jobs, and many more. European Union's border agency went largely unresponsive. International maritime law dictates migrants should have been saved, but many are dying in the Mediterranean. An analysis of the looks and emails from Alarm Forum and Diana Job, as well as reports by the Libyan Coast Guard, showed that the national authorities responded slowly, inefficiently, or not at all. In all, approximately 130 people are believed to have died between 21st and 22nd April, are diverted and found for someone to save them, roughly 45 kilometers, 30 miles from the Libyan coast. Jabir, the eldest of 7 brothers, had acquired his economics studies at university and left Sudan looking for employment in neighboring Libya a year and a half earlier. There he worked small jobs in construction to send money back to his relatives struggling in Sudan's deteriorating economic crisis. But it still wasn't enough, so he contacted smugglers and ordered the ill-fated migrant boat looking to head to Europe.
The high cost of living, no employment, no jobs. He is the eldest of his brothers. He is working to help his brothers. This is why he immigrates to Libya, and also he didn't find any suitable job there in Libya that can make him assist his family here. This is what made him think to immigrate to Europe.
Since the 21st April, wreck alone, the Italian Coast Guard and Navy have rescued at least 149 people, but no such rescue came on 21st April.
I will speak to all of the youth, parents, brothers, and every father that he should be keen on his son's life, because if he travels, that means he will cross the sea and put himself in danger, and he will make his father sad.
More than 20,000 migrants or asylum seekers have perished since 2014 and has renewed accusations that European countries are failing to sufficiently help migrant boats in trouble.
You're watching Addis News Hour, a reminder of today's headlines. Ethiopian patriots have made their country an icon of independence for many nations. And migrant deaths in Mediterranean mark failings in European Union's policy. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha Germany. Thanks for watching. Good night.